Hey, welcome back, Greater Heartland KW family. If you've been joining us in Ignite Skills to Spark Your Career, or you might happen to YouTube or Facebook search on how to qualify potential buyers and sellers. That's session 13 we're covering today, and an important one at that. We're being purposeful in who we're getting into business with. I'm excited to be here with Amanda. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. We're thrilled to be partnering with you in this. Now I know we get to hang out pretty routinely on the regional level, so we get to help our agents grow our business. So it's really fun to be able to bring this together today. Really excited.
Yeah, this is a really great section, and I'm glad to be here to be able to relay why I'm so passionate about it too. Because I think when we know who we're working with and we know what's coming down the pipeline, it can really take some stress out of our business. So
yeah, absolutely. Take the stress out, build confidence, get into some good. Passionate about real estate. So really excited about this. So we're ready to jump in.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, before I share the slides here, let me make some notes here. However you're joining us today, if you're in the market center with your facilitator or your peers, and make sure you have the participant guide. So you can go to ignite.ghregion.com and make sure you have that. Or if you just happen to be watching session 13, however it came out into the interwebs for you, if you YouTube searched it, the participant guide is there for you as well. So whether you're live based on our schedule that we put out for the region, watching on your own in the market center, welcome. Encourage you to put your comments, your questions, your ahas down below wherever you might be watching this. Or if you're out watching at a later date, still bring your questions, bring your ahas. We'd love to be able to see those, and we'll definitely interact with you on those. So I want to make sure that they have the resources they need in order to get going. But yes, we are on session 13. So when you find that participant guide on ignite.ghregion.com, it's a lot of pages. So make sure you're on 13.1. That is the first page of session 13. Okay. All right. Ready to roll?
Yeah, let's get going.
All right. Go through our topic for today, our course overview, man.
So today, as you've been on this journey, we're on section 13. You've already really talked about the real estate expert, which is sparking your career and embracing your job, connecting with your market, defining your value. Then you moved into lead generation and all the steps around that, generating, growing, capturing, and the different ways to capture. So now that we've captured the leads, we're going to talk about how to keep every lead, how to follow up with them, how to strengthen the relationship with the lead, and how to qualify potential buyers and sellers. So that's the big deal, is those leads come in, how do we know if they're an A buyer, a B, a C, ready to buy now? So we're going to walk through all those processes with you today.
Love it.
Part of this section is finding the motivated. You can have a lot of leads come in, but finding the motivated ones is where you have to focus first. Then classifying them by ready, willing, and able. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about what does able, ready, and willing mean, and why is able the first thing. And then qualifying those buyers and sellers. We're going to recap what you've learned, because when you repeat what you've learned out loud and give ahas, it helps your brain to remember them better. And at the end, we're going to go over the daily success systems to keep the qualified buyers and sellers in your pipeline and keep them in the right categories as far as able, willing, and ready. So we're going to keep work on that as well. As we go through the content, we want to hear your questions. We'll break into groups of 2 to 3 so that you can think about what questions you have about this process, and we'll get you to start thinking about how you can really categorize and have a good system and consistency. So that helps build the pipeline. And when you have consistency there, it's going to help you be able to forecast where your business is going, know if you have gaps, know where you need to focus, and make sure that your people that are maybe your B and C people aren't not getting the attention, because those are your 90-day and out people that need to be in your pipeline. So that helps you not have that roller coaster income. So we're going to talk about those systems as well and how you can use command to really help with that.
Love that. Yeah, man. So, and those of y'all who join with us on Ignite, this is the part where you get to pause and think, yeah, on this topic, what would I hope to come away with this? What questions do I presently have? What do I hope to learn? Right. And maybe there's a specific pain point, a specific question you've got about an A, B, C buyer, ready, willing, and able. We're going to take 3 minutes, just like we have every other Ignite session. So think about that question. If you're present with your market center and with your peers, share that with somebody else, and we'll be back in 3.
I'm going to welcome you back from your discussion about what you want to gain out of this section. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite quotes that I think really drives this section home. So it's from the Shift book, and a wise man named Gary Keller said it. Your number one job as a real estate agent is to find ways to get in the path of motivated buyers and sellers. That's your number one job. If you don't have leads and you don't have people to get in front of, you can't sell houses, right? You can't do those things. Just like any other sales business, you have to have the people in order to sell them something and to help them. And so that's I think a really important quote. The second half of this quote really talks about the 80-20 principle. And what you'll find is a lot of people aren't getting in the path. They're just hoping things fall in their lap. So you want to be in that 20% where you're searching out and finding the motivated. So let's begin with finding them and knowing how motivated they are and getting them on that scale of one to the other to the other. So the first thing you're going to probably say is, I'm new. I don't know how to get in the path of motivated people. That's a big myth that we hear a lot. Something that I thought when I was new was, I don't know enough to be finding motivated buyers and sellers. So as you come across a myth, I challenge you to write it out and then think how you can turn that into a positive thing. Like, I know a lot about the market. I'm able to help people. If that's what your myth understanding is, or I don't know enough people, write that out and then think through, how can I know enough people? Or maybe I have more than I think I do. I've just not put it on paper. The data will eliminate the drama around your brain telling you don't have enough business. So really think through that, help you understand why those are myths. So more buyers are finding agents through referrals, friends and neighbors and relatives. And that's not just something we're telling you. That's something that the National Association of Realtors in their 2021 report discovered through interviewing buyers and sellers. So buyers, 47% of them worked with somebody they already knew, a referral from a friend, a referral from one of your past clients. 57% of them were first-time home buyers, said that, and 41% were repeat buyers. So this brings us to a really important point about how important that database is and how important it is not just once to sell them a house or to list their house, but after the sell, because if they're referring people to you, your business is going to grow. And that's a big segment of all buyers. The next one was using a agent they previously used. So again, that comes back to when you close a transaction, what is your system looking like to stay in contact with those people? And I think the number would be higher if agents did a better job of following up with their people, right? So if you're doing a great job and you're not following up, their life is busy just like yours, and they're not going to keep remembering, hey, Sam Smith sold me that house. You have to be in front of them all the time, right? And then the rest of these listed here are, somewhat important as far as where they come from. Yet it's all about, if you're going to focus on one of those, like for sale by owners or open house signage, get a system around it. So then your number would be higher than that 5%, right? So more buyers, are working with the referrals and the friends and neighbors. And I think a lot of a misunderstanding that I hear is, well, I don't want to bug people that I like, or I don't want to bug my friends and family. And I think you have to come back to, is it really bugging them if you're giving them relevant things that they want to know? Like if you're not telling about the market, they're finding it online somewhere else. And is that online source really important, really critical? Is it really know your market, or is it something national that they're searching? And is the data even true? So if you think about it, like, I'm providing a great service, I want my friends and family to have the best. If you look at it that way, instead of I'm bugging them, that can really change that referral business for you. And the people see you're adding value to them, then they want to help add value to your business and help you help other people. So in your manual, it talks about ways that you can really connect with them. And one of them is the FORD method. And FORD stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Dreams. And I know a lot of us real estate agents are really good about talking, yet the FORD makes you listen. And that's what's important, is you have to listen to what that person is saying and be an active listener so they know that you care. And sometimes I use the acronym WAIT, why am I talking? When I'm on a conversation asking information, because if I'm talking more than 20% of the time, that other person's in control of that conversation, and I'm missing critical things that could be helping me determine their motivation, determine where they are in the process, if they're even considering buying or selling. So use that FORD method and ask them questions. The FORD method's not for you to talk about your family. It's for you to talk about their family. And I think a lot of us just get chatty and forget that the call's about them. And people want to know you care. And then you start seeing them send you referrals, or they don't mind if you ask them, do you know anybody thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, right? So first is the FORD. And then I would also tell you that when we cover the open house section, there's going to be some more tips in there about how to connect with people, and I'd really focus on those. And then in session 8, which you already had, we talked about social media. And so what I like to piggyback on that is the social media is great. How do you plus it with one-on-one conversations? Because that's where you really grow the referral business, the past clients. And, past clients referral business are just kind of come help me, come list me, and not as much of you having to compete for a listing. And as we see the market shifting and changing, there's going to be more of those competing listings and competing buyer appointments. So adding value from the social media and picking up the phone or doing an instant message when you see something on Facebook instead of just commenting on the post can really plus in their brain that you're paying attention and you're listening. So just some tips there. So kind of stats, but about sellers. And what you'll find is that they're very similar to your buyer data as far as sellers are finding their agents through referrals, A higher percentage are using an agent that they've bought and sold with before because they know how the process went. And it's very similar data you're seeing in all of these categories. One thing I will really point out to you is if your sellers are using you again, you have to be communicating with them after the sell.
Mm-hmm.
So that number is from people that are staying in relationship with their database. So a person's going to buy and sell, every 8 to 12 years. And I know that seems like a long time, but in between those times, they're giving you referrals if you're doing the right thing. And this is where command is so critical, because once you have them in the database, do you have them on a smart plan? Are they seeing something from you? Are you doing your calls every quarter to them? Looking at what your smart plan looks like. And I challenge you, as you look at your business at the end of your first year, where did all of it come from? And every year, see if you can grow that on the referral side. Because if you can grow that referral business from friends and neighbors, then that means you are communicating systematically and consistently. If you're not seeing that and you're having to find new business all the time, then that doesn't really help you with the longevity of this as a career. So really emphasizing, how do I keep the people I already have engaged, so that as I'm building more people, my database just gets stronger and not I'm having to refill it every year with people that I don't know. And what I see a lot is the transactions that struggle the most to get to the closing table are people that you didn't know. They were new leads. And so to make your business easier and more consistent, it's good to have a consistent system set up to keep that past client and referrals coming in. So you have, I think, smoother transactions because the people already trust you. They already know you. They're not questioning as many things during the process because they already know you have their back and you're working in their best interest. So just keep that in mind, is do you have a 36 touch program in place? And if you don't, you can go to the Smart Plans library, and there's a lot of them in there. And what I will tell you is it's a rip off and duplicate system. Don't go recreate the wheel, especially as a new person. If something's already working at a high level for someone who's doing 10 times more transactions than you, then it would work for you. So, and the other tip is make sure if you're putting people on these smart plans, you're putting yourself on them as well. Because I always loved when I got a call from somebody saying, hey, I love that that you sent to me, and I didn't even know what it was because I hadn't seen it. So make sure you're putting yourself on those smart plans so that you know and can talk in an educated way when someone calls you or emails you or message you about it. Go, oh yeah, I get what you're saying, that kind of thing. So just keep in mind that sellers and buyers really want to be treated the same way. And that's what the stats from NAR showed us. So this is a screenshot of your command and your opportunities tab. And what I love about this, and I've been doing this 22 years. So I used to have a whiteboard that looked just like this. And I knew that I had to have so many people for this month's closings, next month's closings, and I had them in colors so I'd know how far along they were. So I would know if my business was on track to be profitable or not. And so I think this is such a great screenshot of knowing where, if they're in cultivate, if they're in appointment, if they're in active, or they're under contract. So if I knew I had to have 4 under contract, and in this screenshot I only have 2, I can go back to my actives and say, who are my most motivated people in my actives that I need to be having more conversations with about moving them forward into under contract so I can stay on track for my goal. Yeah. So I think it's really important to look at that. I also will say that when I talk and coach my agents, we talk a lot about if on the KPA, which is an assessment we do here at Keller Williams, if I'm more on the optimistic end of that or more on the pessimistic end in that KPA, I think that's going to show up on your pipeline differently depending which person you are. And let me explain. If you're optimistic, everybody in our pipeline is probably we think they're all going to buy with us, they're all going to list with us, and they're probably going to do it in the next 30 days. So with those agents, and I'm one of those, I just take everybody back 30 days. And I really vet out my A people and make sure they really are an A buyer. So we're going to talk about more what that is later, or if they're a B person or a C person, because I don't want to be over forecasting and fall short, But on the flip side, if I'm more on the pessimistic side on that KPA, I'm thinking I have nobody buying this month. And when they say, give me 60 days to call me back, you really are doing that when they may go under contract in 10. If they walk into the right open house, meet the right agent, and have an emotional proximity with that person, then you've lost that person because you don't think they're moving forward like you thought. So just a way to look at the pipeline and think about, am I really putting people in the right places? And then I just love looking at the under contracts and knowing my goal is 4 and I only have 2. So I go back a step to active and say, who have I not communicated with enough? Or am I not having the right conversations or asking the right questions to move them to the next step? And so on. And then I go back to appointments and so on until I figure out how to move that pipeline forward.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I mean, oftentimes, yes, being tech trainer, right? I'd be remorseful if I didn't mention this. Oftentimes, we see opportunities as something that is a step in the process, a have to for compliance, and yet, as long as you've been in the business, you understood the importance of a pipeline, right? I'd argue through opportunities, we're missing the opportunity to have one of the best pipelines in real estate. That moving from a have to for compliance to a get to as a business owner that provide immense insight.
Well, I have a couple agents that really do use the whiteboard for the visual, and I just say this ought to be a mimic of what that looks like.
Yeah.
So you don't have to get rid of the whiteboard necessarily. I work every day through a whiteboard.
Yes.
Yet this is another way to have clarity around that. So from everything that you've learned so far, we're going to take a few minutes and talk about ahas, because that's where something that dawned on me didn't dawn on Clark. And when he says it out, I say it out loud, then he hears it again. And then all of a sudden now it's registering with him. So awesome. So it's a way to really share what you took out of that section with each other. And when we share them out loud, it strengthens the power of it. And there's no bad aha, just like there's no bad questions. So whatever you took away from it is important to share. Welcome back. I hope those ahas were really meaningful for you. And now we're going to jump into developing pipeline more by classifying your able, ready, and willing sellers. And this is one of those key things that I think it comes into asking great questions, which we're going to go over some of those. And this gives you clarity on, am I ahead of my goal? Am I behind my goal? And some of those things. So why do we start with able? Even though all leads and contacts have potential, they're not all going to close that month, right? And they're not all going to be able to buy or sell at that time. There could be all kinds of reasons, financing, job, family, just school's not out yet. They don't want to list their house. And there's all kinds of things that come up. A potential buyer might need to save more money. They might not have the credit to get the mortgage. Seller might have some liens and things on their property, or just not good timing. So it's all about talking through those things and figuring out if they're able, ready, and willing, so that you can clarify and classify where they should be in your business. So another quote from Gary Keller, this one's from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And if you haven't picked that book up and you haven't read it, that'd be on my list. And you can take it to a lot of office stores and get it bound into a spiral. It's really like a workbook for your business. And what I have found over years of doing this is that most every problem has a solution in that book for real estate. If you just know which section you need to go to, and if you start learning it, it'll be, okay, this is exactly what I need to be doing. That would get me past this, or get me past this, or make this system better. So focus becomes increasingly possible in direct proportion to how clear you are about what you want, when you want it, and what you must do to get it. So it's like you don't get in the car to go on vacation and you don't know if you're going where it's cold or where it's hot, right? You have to know where you're going so you know what to pack in your suitcase. And it's the same thing. You want to know what is going to happen. You want to know those goals and put them in writing and have a path and a checklist on the steps to get there. So this quote doesn't just apply to real estate agents. I mean, it applies to anything, right? Yeah. So when buyers and sellers know what they want and when they want it, then you can help them get it. Mm-hmm. And you know what path they're on. So we're going to go over, when you contact them, how you know if they're ready, willing, and able to buy or sell, and what kind of questions you can ask. So the first thing I'll say is come from curiosity. And I'll say an example of this is someone calls you on a sign or comes to an open house and says, I want to wait 6 months. And some agents will say, that's a terrible idea. Well, instead of saying something back, you need to ask one of those open-ended questions like, why is 6 months important to you? Or tell me more about that. Those kind of questions help you gain clarity and not be in judgment on what they've said. Because some people just discount, they're 6 months out, I don't need to spend any more time with them. Well, are they really, or do they not understand the process? Or do they really have a reason they're 6 months out? So asking those questions, tell me more about why 6 months is your deadline, can really help you have clarity on how you help them move forward and whether they're able, willing, and ready. Because they may be, they just don't know because they don't know what they don't know, right? So we have to think about that. If you refer to your participant guide, it does explain a lot in there, and it defines able as a potential client is financially and legally capable of completing the transaction now. Ready is a potential client is motivated and prepared to make strategic decisions now. And willing means potential client is eager to buy, sell, or both. So when you have this person, you have a person you need to be communicating with all the time because they are looking to make a decision and do something. And if it's not you asking the right questions, it'll be somebody else. So that's why it's important to determine, are all three of those things lined up? And when they are, you're in the middle of those three circles. And that to me is an A person.
Yeah.
So I know in your manual, you have a place to kind of define able, willing, and ready. And sometimes I get excited and don't talk super slow. So we'll go over them again to make sure that you have them. So able is a potential client is financially and legally capable of completing a transaction. So to me, that means there's no liens on their houses if they're a seller, or if they're going through a divorce, they have the right to sell it. For a buyer, it means they've been to a lender and the lender has said they are ready to buy, right? That's the financial piece of that. Ready is potential client is motivated and prepared to make a strategic decision now. So they say, I need to be in a house before school starts in August, and this is June. That means they're ready, right? That's a good way to look at it in the definition wise and in the real life, how it could work. And then potential willing is potential client is eager to buy, sell, or both. So if someone is pre-qualified and you know their timeline and they're sending you houses instead of you sending them houses, which happens even if we send houses because of all the things out there in the introverse, right?
Yeah.
But that means they're eager. You know, they're eager, they're willing, they're ready to go, and they need to be a priority for you. So how do you think this framework, using those three definitions, could help you clarify if people are an A, B, or C person? You might think of in terms of the cultivate phase and opportunities, pipeline, and command, because then you know where you need to be and what system, what smart plan you need to have them on. So if they're going to do business with you in the next 14 days, they need to be a buyer, right? If you go to the lender and the lender says they are not qualified, but they need 60 days, B buyer. I mean, you're going to kind of determine how you're going to qualify them or how you're going to place them in your pipeline. Yet, if it's 60 days, then they still have the other two pieces. They're motivated and they're ready. They're just not able yet, right? Because they don't have the financing in place. But it's coming in 60 days, right? You know it'll be there. So then maybe they're a B plus buyer, B plus in your. So just kind of think through that. And I think it's good to ask other people in the business, how much do you communicate with a person who's 60 days out? And if you're working with a lender who's also communicating with them, and I always ask my lenders, what kind of follow-up do you do? Like, do you pre-qualify them and then until you hear from the realtor, you don't ever talk to them again? Or are you also working a pipeline? Because then you guys can work in tandem to make sure that they stay with you through that 60 days till they're ready, able, and willing to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. And Amanda, I'd add here, I mean, this getting back to the why this is so important. A lot of us, if we've been engaging in the daily success systems, we've spoken with people and they've possibly raised their hand. Yeah, we're looking to make a decision. And I remember being a new agent and getting names like for the first time of people that could possibly just be that first commission check. And I just got so excited. And I might have been a little gung-ho, right? Somebody might have just been somebody coming through an open house and they just fill out a survey. And I was like calling them every day, right? When they might not have communicated any intent at all. This helps make sense out of the people that you've already been introduced to as leads. How do I best categorize them and have a system around how I should be appropriate in that relationship, right? Appropriate my follow-up, what makes sense for their qualification.
Well, and to that point, I think it's important you ask people how they would like to be communicated with, and you deliver on what you say. So if they're 60 days out, you say, would it be okay if I messaged you every Thursday to check in on your progress? Or is a phone call better? Or is an email better? Like, ask them how they'd like to be treated and then show up that way. They'll say, when the transaction closes, they're going to say, Clark did everything. He's always in touch with us when he said he would be. And communication is probably the biggest complaint that agents get, other agents get about other agents. It's the biggest complaint brokers get about agents. And I think sometimes me communicating with you is different than what I'm expecting than what you're expecting. So just ask what they expect and say, hey, every Thursday, I'm going to follow up with you on whether you've moved forward on getting pre-qualified or if you've got that next thing done. And just put that into your calendar so you remember to keep up with those people. Or if they say, no, I'll call you in a month, I would probably think, okay, I need to call them in half that time to make sure they're on track.
Good fast rule.
Yeah. So with your B buyers, they're either unable, not ready, or not willing. And we kind of talked about, like, they've got to wait on something. It's important to make sure you keep in contact with them and use MOFRs, and that's make offers for instant response. And so think about if that buyer just hasn't gone to get pre-qualified, maybe they're a C person, but we don't know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe always giving them offers about, hey, there's a new loan program that could help you with X or help you with X. And I think the clarity around that is buyers don't always tell you that they're having finance issues. They don't tell you those things because sometimes you haven't gained the trust to be their fiduciary yet. So giving them options and giving them offers that make them move into action is critical until you've gained that trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With your C people, they don't have any immediate need to transact business with you, and they're perfect candidates for that long-term nurture. So they're 61 days out. They're out there a ways. Yet life changes daily. So you could have a seller who says, I'm not going to sell for 2 years. And then the next day at work, they get laid off. Right? So if you're not keeping them on some kind of consistent long-term nurture, they may not think to call you. And yes, you should be making those calls quarterly to them. Yet quarterly, if that happened, why not be at the right time? Like when you called them the day before, everything was great. And now their world has changed. Or they've got another baby coming and they need more space, So I think it's critical to really make sure you have them on some kind of consistent plan so they know, Clark's my person whenever I need to sell. And even though I told them 2 years ago, wow, things have changed and I need a bigger house or I need a smaller house or whatever that is. Yeah. So just make sure they're on some kind of long-term nurture through the SMART plans.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? Because whatever they communicate in that moment, it's 100% true for them in that moment, right? And that's their timeline, and yet that's not a hard, fast rule, right? That's only true in that moment. Yes, it can change so quick, and let's call it what it is. They're not going to think of you, right? If it's even a month or 2 or 3 months later, don't risk them going to another open house or somebody happening to knock on their door because another agent is farming that neighborhood, right? Another great agent that wants to gain business is possibly going to come into their world unless you continually keep that up.
Or even worse, they're going to get something from somebody online wanting to buy their house. And in the weak moment, they go, okay, that's fast cash. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And they don't think to check back with you because you haven't been checking back with them. So it's not on them. That's on you, right?
Yeah.
I think an example for a buyer that we just had in our office is, he told our agent, I have 12 months with my relocation to find a place. I'm going to wait out this market and wait it out. In the process of packing from another state and moving, he was going to move into an apartment. And he said, I just loathe the moving so badly. I want to find something before I get there now. So I have to move twice this year. I don't want to move into an apartment and then 6 months find a house. I'm just going to do it now. If she hadn't have been communicating with him on the regular about the move and heard the pain, and that's one of those things is asking great questions like, what's frustrating you? Oh, this moving is just more than I thought it would be. Half my stuff's going to have to go into storage. I mean, it's just not going to work. I just want to find something. And she had him under contract in 2 days after that conversation. Yet we would have said he's a C buyer from what he said on the phone. It just makes you have to keep communicating with people, especially in the parts of their lives that are tough.
Yeah.
And be there for them because sometimes you are a solution, even though they aren't even thinking about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bingo.
So as far as your A people, you just got to make sure that your number one goal is to secure the appointment with them. If they have all 3 things are lining up, then it's set the appointment and figure out the path and give them a timeline so they know where they're going, you know where they're wanting to go, you know what their timeline is so that you guys can be in sync on their process. Do we have any ideas or any things that you're coming up with there? You can share them with people in your class on ways that you could connect with the A, B, and C buyers and sellers and some things that have worked, because I'm sure in the calls you've had, we're on session 13, you've been getting some types of leads. So let's talk a little bit about what some ahas you are taking away from your A, B, and C.
You're ready.
Well, welcome back. I hope you had some great ahas around how to work with A, B, and C clients and what processes you can put in place through Command to really make that easier for you. And one way I see Command, especially for new agents, is it's like having an admin that you aren't paying for. Do a lot of your follow-up. So if you're really trying to keep that marketing dollar to zero and get as much as you can to that bottom line, utilize Command all the time, because it is like having a person doing things for you that you're not having to pay for. So there's a big advantage there. So as you looked at the A, B, and C people, think about, how do I get them in my pipeline? How do I get them in smart plans? What do I do so that the Command can do the work for me until they are an A person?
Yeah, man, one thing, like just to make that assistant, just one tip that we've heard through this, add them to the cultivate phase of opportunities. And yet also we primarily work out of contacts. So have a tag that mirrors whatever you're putting in cultivate. If it's, yes, take A, B, and C buyers, utilize this system on the time frame, put it in opportunities, but add a tag in Command. You can easily filter through that. So when it comes time to have follow-up conversations, filter by B buyers, and contacting them once a week. Have I made my contacts this week for that follow-up? Set them, forget it, right?
I love that. And I think if you're putting like your B buyers and you're tagging them, then, your lender tells you about a great new bond program or a new money down program. That is something you should send out to all your B people, because and your C people that are buyers, because how could that change their timeline? Could that be the answer? And I'll tell you, when I was selling real estate, if I didn't have a reason to call that week or that person, I called one of my favorite lenders and said, tell me what's out there that other people are using that would really help my buyers. And then I would call buyers that were in my pipeline and say, hey, I want to make you aware that this new program came out, and I think it would be great for you to utilize, something that could really make it change in what you can afford, maybe help you get a better situation. And that always was me showing that I cared and was helping them in a way. And on the flip side, I also used it to call past clients and said, hey, I know you just bought from me 6 months ago, or bought with me 6 months ago. There's a new loan program out that I think could help a lot of people. And I know that you know a lot of people that would probably be looking to buy. And so can you think of anybody that would benefit from free money down money or whatever the program was? So if you run out of reasons to call, and you feel like you aren't adding value, find something in the market that would add value and call about that.
Love it. Love it. Good stuff.
So now that we're past the classifying, we're going to talk about qualifying buyers and sellers. And it's so important to do this so you know what you know, and you can uncover things that maybe at the surface level, like at an open house or on a phone call, didn't show up. And now you can get more information and get more clarity. So I think that's really important, that a lot of us skip, especially when we're new, because we're excited to have people, that we skip asking some great questions. And what we need to know now are questions and conversation starters that help us determine more about the able, willing, and ready people. And what I have been using for a long time when I was selling was a buyer lead sheet that asks great questions. And there's one in your participant guide that we're providing for you that helps you kind of walk through what that should look like. And there's also one for pre-listing, that adds a lot of clarity. Before you jump in your car and go try to list someone's house, we have to know more information. So if you look at that buyer sheet as kind of a string of questions that help you uncover motivation. And I think when I'm going through it, I'm not just asking the question point blank, I'm making it a conversation. And then they feel more open to tell you more that helps you uncover motivation, timeline, their triggers, those kind of things. So based on what you covered in previous sessions, as far as segmenting your database, you might want to have some things that come up in this questionnaire be part of that too.
Yeah, man. When we use our lead buyer sheets, it's something that you gotta have fun with this stuff as well, right? So I always imagine like once I got a lead and understood they were going to make a real estate decision, had the buyer lead sheet or the seller lead sheet. Envision like going into detective mode, and this is like the case file, right? That there's something going on, and here's my rap sheet, or what do I presently know, what do I not know? So I get to go in detective mode to stay in curiosity, trying to uncover motives and all this stuff. So maybe a little cheesy, and yet it was kind of, but that's what you're doing, right? Through all that, you're getting to know what you need to know, and through that conversation, what else do you feel like there's something more that you need to know? That buyer lead sheet and seller lead sheet can provide that framework.
Well, and I think it helps you. I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying, Clark. And I think it helps you also craft different messages based on what they answer. So if you have a B person, they may need more information about financing and things like that. Where if you have a C person, they may be wanting just market knowledge.
Yeah.
So if you're asking great questions in that buyer lead sheet, you can better craft messages that fit that person. And also you can find out, if you're working more from a database standpoint, if they are retired and they're going to be downsizing, you probably aren't sending them things about schools, right? So you might not have uncovered that at an open house, but by asking great questions on that lead sheet, you can figure out what would be impactful for them to learn about. I think if you're having people unsubscribe from things that you're sending through command, I always just pick up the phone and say, hey, I saw you unsubscribed. What could I be sending you that would add value? Because they maybe want to hear from you. They just don't want to hear from you what you're telling them, because they don't care about the schools or they don't care about X that you're sending them. So I think getting clarity on, I saw that you unsubscribed, and that makes me wonder if I'm not doing a great job communicating with you. What could I have done differently? Don't put it on them like, oh, you unsubscribed and I'm mad about that. Say, right, I'm obviously not doing a great job of giving you information, because I know real estate information is important to everybody. So what would you like to see me sending you? I mean, sometimes just asking gives you so much more. And then they say, wow, she cared enough to call and say, how could she help me? Even though I'm a C person, they don't know they're a C person, but in your brain they are. So you're thinking, how can I cultivate that relationship for down the road?
Yeah. Well, I love that. Yeah. It brings to mind that 6 personal perspectives that we first introduced. Like that's being accountable, right? You're owning those results. If it's to be, it's up to me, right? And so you're owning it instead of being victim. Oh, they unsubscribed. I don't want to work with them anyways. No. How can I own this? How can I understand what I can better do?
I mean, when I was listing houses, if I didn't get a listing, and in that market, they were competing listings. It's not as much like it is right now, yet I know that's coming back around. I would call the seller and say, what could I have done differently to earn your business? And yes, it made me sick to my stomach. It gave me like all kinds of nerves, yet I grew and my presentation got better the next time. And I knew how I had said what I said didn't set with them. So then I can make adjustments and grow. I mean, you're not going to grow if you don't figure out how you failed. Sure. And yes, it's scary, especially the first couple times, yet they will respect you. And if that first agent doesn't work out, guess who they're going to call to list it? Because I called and asked, how could I have earned your business? I always want to grow and do better. And, I'm sorry we don't get to work together, yet I want to adapt and make myself better for the next person.
Awesome. Love that.
Okay, so let's jump into that buyer, qualifying buyers. And if you don't mind, Clark, I was going to have you kind of role play it with me.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me, so we're on the qualified buyers for this lead sheet.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, I'll be the agent, Clark, and you be the potential buyer I'm interviewing. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Can we make this real play? Like,
yeah.
Cause all right. So yeah. All right. I got a real play purchase that we're actually looking to buy for real.
Okay, great. So hi, Clark. I'm excited to help you find a new home. I'd like to start with some questions to make sure I can give you 5-star customer experience. Let me start with some basics. What's the best email and phone number to reach you?
Yeah, it's Clark Kendall at kw.com and 636-229-8500.
Thank you so much. What are the best times for us to communicate over the phone?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, before 11 in the mornings. Yeah.
Are texts better or phone calls better for you?
A text first would be better. Just that way I can anticipate the call because I don't want to miss and then play back and forth.
Okay. Okay. Have any other agents taken you out to show you any properties yet?
No.
Okay, great. I'm excited to be the agent who takes you to see some properties. Is there anyone else purchasing the home with you?
Yes. Yeah. My wife and I would be. Mhm.
Okay. Would you mind sharing her contact information with me?
Sure. Yep. I'll give that to you.
I always like to, in the process, have both spouses in the group text so that if you're in a meeting or she's in a meeting or you forget to tell her something, she doesn't say, Clark didn't tell me that. So I want to make you look like a hero by making sure everybody's communicated with at the same time.
I'll take all the help I can get on that. Thank you. Yeah, let's do that.
That's what I usually hear. So so texting's good with her as well then?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So when we can find the right fit for you and your wife based on the responses we're going to go over, how long have you been looking for a home?
Yeah, I say lightly, perusing the area, probably about a year.
Oh, okay. Wow. So I'm curious, why are you moving?
Well, this is actually the real estate transaction. We would stay where we're currently at, but it'd be a second home. So we're looking at a second home as a vacation rental, but also so enjoyment for ourselves and for income as well for real estate investing.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
I've helped several couples do something very similar, so that will be a great investment for you. Yeah. Have you? So you're not selling your house, you're not moving. We're just finding something else, correct?
Yeah, correct.
When would be a good time for us to get together so that we can really go over with you and your spouse what you're looking for in this vacation rental?
Oh, goodness. Probably not in the next couple of days, today or tomorrow. Possibly Friday afternoon, late afternoon.
You think like 3 or 5 be better for you on Friday?
3 would be better.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll send you a text to remind you in that group text so that your wife's looped in. Okay?
Okay, awesome.
That sound okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
So on this second home, are you going to be working with the lender on that?
Yes, we will.
That's fantastic. Who are you going to be working with?
That's still kind of up in the air. I got a couple of connections there. Yet definitely willing to understand what other products are out there or any other great recommendations you have. So
okay, I'd be happy to recommend somebody who does a lot with second home financing.
Oh, awesome.
So I will email that over to you, and then I will also let them know so when you call, they're not like, who is this? I want to make sure you get the same service you're going to get with me. Okay. So besides you and your spouse, is there anybody else involved in the home buying decision?
We don't believe so. I mean, part of that is, as we're kind of looking at this financing and, yeah, I don't think so. We're going to begin just with my wife and I,
okay,
and understand what that borrowing looks like and what that price is. So if it comes at a later point, just so you know, if we need to have other partners in that, not that we really like to, but if that gets us to what we need to do and the spot that we want, that's possibly an option we've talked through.
Okay, great. Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning you want to buy as quickly as possible and 1 meaning you're not sure, how would you rate yourself right now?
Oh, an 8.
An 8, okay. So an 8 means that you want to buy something in the next 60 days. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm excited to help you do that. In order for us to find the perfect home, we'll meet at that appointment Friday at 3, and we will sit down and go through what you're really looking for. If you have time before that 3 o'clock appointment, I would recommend talking to the lender I'm referring you over to, because that could give us some clarity on the parameters as far as how much you want to purchase and what's comfortable for you.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do that. Absolutely. Yep,
okay.
Can do.
I appreciate you going through these questions with me. If you think of anything before Friday that would be helpful for me to know, feel free to call or text me, email, whichever's best for you. Otherwise, I'll see you Friday at 3.
Okay. Sounds great, Amanda. Thanks.
You're welcome. So what I would say is that definitely use the alternative close in the buyer responses and when you're talking to the seller on the pre-listing, because most buyers and sellers suffer from analysis paralysis and they don't know their schedule. They don't know when's a good time. Giving them an alternative close is like an easy button for people to make decisions. So definitely as you're setting appointments and talking about meeting, give them two options, because both options are yes, right? Yet you're taking that. It's just like, where do you want to go for dinner? I don't know. It's the American issue across all of America, right? So just give people options. Do you want to meet at 3 or do you want to meet at 5? And Clark just automatic 3 is better for me, you know? Yeah. So I always kind of start with morning or afternoon. And if they say afternoon, then I give them 2 times in the afternoon. Yeah. It just makes it it chunks it down into a smaller decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And man, I'll share on this side. As soon as you had mentioned that time frame or my readiness, that scale, and you said that 60 days, I got an energy around that. Like on my side, because it was real play, right? Which is always helpful if we can bring that in your role play sessions. But yeah, for me, it's like, 60 days, like I want that. I really, really do. And so that emotional connection, just by answering that question, I've attached that energy of getting there with our conversation.
I love that. And I think as I'm listening through the buyer talking or the seller talking, I'm thinking of resources that I can send to keep that excitement up. Mm-hmm. So for Clark, I would say, have you ever read the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book? And if he says, no, I haven't. And I'd say, the first 200 pages are just probably the best 200 pages about investing in real estate I've ever read as an investor. And I'd highly recommend you read that. And I will literally get the book and FedEx it to their house the next day, so they have it in hand and know that I listened. Let me send that out to you. And I get it right to them. Or if it's a first-time home buyer, I'm going to find resources to send out to them. So something that, because probably one or the other of the spouses is a researcher and wants to read things. Mm-hmm. So you're going to hit one of the two people as, wow, this is something I can really learn from. The person who's not a researcher is going to thumb through it and say, yeah, there's some good stuff in it. I'm sure Amanda's going to guide me through that. Right. So especially with investment and second things, you may have one spouse who's not quite sure they want to do it. And that can really help move them both forward. And when they come to the appointment, they already have more knowledge.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Love
so
that.
It's just like when we go into the seller one, the pre-listing packet, what you send out can determine whether they are ready to list the minute you walk in the door, and you're not having to earn the listing because you've earned it with what you sent them in value.
Yeah, that's good.
So now that you have heard us do it, I would love for you guys to take 15 minutes and find a partner in class. And I'd say not your buddy, because they're going to let you off easy. Find somebody else that you don't know as well and work through the buyer lead sheet. And you can see as you read through it, I skipped over a couple things because he'd already answered the question. So you don't read the questions verbatim. You make it a conversation so that they don't say, well, I just said that I didn't have my financing in place. And now she's asking me that. So this is where the active listening is important. And that's why we have places for you to take notes, because taking notes makes you a better active listener.
Yeah, love that.
Okay, so we'll give you 15 minutes to do that.
Yeah, and those of y'all who might be just watching on your own, if you're on schedule live with us, call somebody, right? Or chat with somebody in your house. Just ask these questions, get familiar with it. Don't say, oh, I don't have a partner, and let this time go by. Participate, find somebody, or if you're watching this at a later point, call somebody up and walk through these questions, whether it's loved one, whoever,
Yeah, loved ones are a pretty good practice field for you. It's better to practice on people that we aren't actually doing business with than to practice on our clients, because that does not look good. So practice with somebody who, if you mess up a little bit, they're going to be like, okay, they're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right, we'll be right back.
Well, welcome back. I hope your role plays went well. And even if you had some mess ups and things like that, it's a learning process and you just get better by doing it more and more. So even if you have to get in your car in the morning and call somebody and practice, wherever you can fit that time in, it will pay off for you because you will come off more polished. And it goes back to, if you're new, you don't think you know what you know, but when you start doing the role play, people don't know you're new.
That's right.
Because there's experienced agents not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you can sound just as educated and just as prepared when you've done role play. Absolutely. So I highly encourage to fit it into your daily schedule to find someone to role play, whether it's the buyer script, the buyer form, the seller form, or just scripts and things like that, objection handlers, all that stuff. Very important. Yeah. So now we're going to jump into the touch plans. Now that you've gone through the buyer needs analysis is what I've always called it. Mm-hmm. The buyer sheet that's in your packet, we talk about communicating with your database. And when you uncover buyers who are not ready, willing, and able to buy right now, that's a future transaction. So you need to stay in touch. And that's the key piece of using the smart plans, is that you're able to stay in touch with them. And it's systematic. Because you're probably like me and your day gets busy, and if you don't have it on your calendar or you don't have it set up, it's not going to happen. Well, yeah. So when you first meet them, set it up, and then it's a forget it type of thing. Set it and forget it. And you don't have, that day you end up having 3 appointments and you're calling leads, and then you have to go pick up a sick kid. You know, life happens even to real estate agents. Then that person didn't get a touch. Where if you have it set up to be automatic and consistent, then your life can be inconsistent for a day and your clients don't know that. They don't feel that, your customers, because you have a consistent plan set up through smart plans. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to add before we go on. I think one of the number one complaints with new agents is the inconsistency of their income and just the roller coaster of, I have 3 buyers, I have 2 closings, I have nothing, I have this, I have that. Well, when you have a lot of transactions going, or even 2, or even 1, you're focused on the inspections and all of those things, and you're not focused on generating more business. Yeah. So when you have your smart plan set up, if you slip for a couple days because you're in the middle of inspections and all these things that really should be done afternoon, yet as a new agent, you may feel like they're critical in the moment, you still have your smart plan going and communicating, which eliminates some of that inconsistency in your income because stuff is still happening even if you're not doing it. Yeah. And it doesn't replace you picking up the phone and making the calls, yet it's better than doing nothing. Yeah. Okay. So kind of to wrap that up, I think it's just important to look at this, and it's going to carry over to sellers too. So as it carries over, we're going to talk about qualifying sellers so you know what kind of smart plan to put them on and how to activate them, put them in your business in the right places. So when you qualify sellers, with the pre-listing questionnaire, that helps you build relationships with 6 connecting questions and classify your potential sellers as A, B, or C sellers. And the pre-listing questionnaire will also help you create a pre-listing packet that helps you win listings by focusing on the seller's motivation. And when I send those out and I get to the home and they've been opened and looked at, I know that person is closer to saying yes. Where if the packet's still closed, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to do a little bit more work to show value and really get into what their needs are. Okay. So you can use that as kind of an indicator for you to know where you are before you walk into that appointment as well. And I think prefacing it with the seller by saying, hey, before I come to the appointment on Tuesday at 2, if you could have looked through that packet, it would help us understand and help you better. So kind of make it important for them to know to open it. And I mean, I have mine FedExed over to the house so they know it's important. And I put lots of cool stuff there so that they go, oh, it's a FedEx package. It must be important. And you don't have to FedEx it. You can get FedEx packages and have somebody or yourself drop it off when they're not home. You know, either way, but at least it's getting, I say, there's going to be a package delivered to you tomorrow. because the next day is the listing appointment and I want them to have time to look through that.
Yeah.
So let's jump into how to qualify sellers. And we're giving you the same type of form that questions that we gave you for buyers. And the reason why that's important is I'll just tell you a little story. You know, my first year in real estate, I had a listing lead came in from my lead generation from a friend, referred somebody to me. And I didn't have anything like this, or I didn't think it was to use anything like this. And I talked to the seller for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, set the appointment to go out the next day, did my comparables, got my marketing stuff ready, did all those things, pulled up to the house in a neighborhood with regular stick-built houses, sets a trailer house. So did I ask the right questions? Would this form have helped me? As a new person, I was like, oh my gosh, none of my comps are going to be right. Nothing I'm going to say to this person, I'm going to know what I'm doing, because I've never sold a trailer house. And it's in I mean, you just wouldn't have known it was in a trailer house because of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask enough questions. So that was on me. And from that day forward, I asked a lot more questions because I had to do a 2-step appointment where I said, well, let me get a look at everything. I left my comparables in the car because obviously they meant nothing. And I went in and I had to wing it. And winging it is not the solution, because if it hadn't been a referral from another person, they probably would have been like, she was unprepared and not ready, you know? So going in and asking great questions on that appointment with, you know, on the pre-appointment or the pre-listing questionnaire can really save you a lot of discomfort when you get out there and it's not what you're expecting. Like, do they owe money? Do they owe more than what the house is worth? You don't want to go into that conversation not prepared for it. Yeah. And the markets that I've been through, we had a lot of sellers bringing money to closing, but I wanted to know that going into it, not walk into it. So I always ask those kind of questions, like, you know, how much do you owe on your mortgage? Are you current on your mortgage? Things like that. And I don't ask those first thing. I let the relationship build, because it's kind of awkward to say, well, how much do you owe on your mortgage? And are you late? That doesn't sound right. But as you're going through the process, with this questionnaire, you'll get more comfortable where they will be able to tell you those types of things to help you be better prepared. Yeah. So we'll let you guys take 15 minutes and role play this same questionnaire, just like Clark and I did the buyer one. And I challenge you is, if you're the agent, you're doing the questionnaire. If you're the buyer or the seller, take some notes so that you're hearing what they're saying and what they could have said differently or how it made you feel, because that's how the sellers are going to feel when you're asking the questions. So be an active participant, even if you're not the person asking the questions. Okay. So we'll give you 15 minutes to do that. All right, welcome back. I hope you had some clarity and some information that you learned and gained from doing the seller role play. I bet it made you feel more comfortable about going on a seller appointment. And I challenge you to keep that. I keep mine on a clipboard when I was selling. So if I had a lead come in or I needed to get my hands on it quick, I had it right there. So I didn't forget to do that step. Sometimes we get so excited about going on a listing appointment, we forget some of the steps. And so that's important in that checklist, is to have that ready. Don't have to go search it down on your computer. Print off some copies and have it handy. So as we move through that seller checklist or that seller pre-listing, we then can decide how do we communicate with them in our database. Same steps as the buyer, same 19 to connect, 36 to convert, 1 to cement. But this is when you use your touch plans to nurture people. And for example, you could send a B and C buyer a market update about their specific area. That keeps them informed on equity, keeps them informed what's happening in the neighborhood, all those kind of things. We're going to talk more about sellers and when the sellers in section 15, which is 2 sessions from now, so you can gain more clarity of what you do once you have the appointment. This is just how do we nurture them, whether they're A, B, or C person, and what plan to put them on. So I kind of challenge you to look at who you already have as a seller potential. And if you haven't done the seller assessment or the pre-listing, I think it's a great time to call and say, hey, I know we spoke about listing your house a couple of weeks ago, and in order to offer better, higher level of service, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. And that gives you a way to go back and get that seller information that you may have skipped over because A, you didn't know, you didn't know it existed or didn't know to do it. So it puts it back on you that you're going to provide a higher level of service by asking these questions. Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 10 minutes? And go through that seller questionnaire with people in your current pipeline. Yeah. And then make sure you put them on the right system, 19 to connect or 36. And then you have clarity. Are they really a C person? Are they really a B person? Because you've asked more questions and gained more clarity. Okay. Yeah. So with the buyer questionnaire and the seller questionnaire, what are some things that you guys took away from this section that can help you with your appointments? We'll take ahas from 3 to 5 people, and we'll be back. Welcome back. And I hope that you guys had some great ahas about how the buyer pre-listing and the seller pre-listing forums can help you gain more clarity and ask great questions. And I want to conclude this segment with a lead follow-up. We've covered about the importance of following up with your buyers and sellers. We've covered the lead conversion, which is the path of the appointment and the signed agreement. We learned about strengthening relationships through the touch plans. And then finally, we talked about how to qualify and categorize your clients, potential clients, for now and future business. So there is a worksheet or a little work activity for you to do on 13.11 that would help you build and strategize around what you're going to do following up with what you've learned today.
Yeah, Amanda. So I'll tell you what, for this, let's shoot for about 7 minutes
Okay.
on this activity.
I'll give you 7 minutes. And what I would tell you is whoever you're in the room with, make sure, have them be your accountability partner or whatever you're putting in place. Like if you're writing a plan to make a checklist around qualifying people, and that checklist would include using the buyer checklist or using the seller checklist or whatever. If you say, I want to make a plan around that and you're going to give yourself a week, who in the room is going to hold you accountable to getting that done in a week?
All right. Yeah. Love this. Yeah. So again, on that guide there, you'll have little check marks. Obviously, don't check it off if you haven't done it yet. This is a sheet you get to revisit at a later point based on when you're committing to put that follow-up plan in place, right? So that's where you get to share it there.
I mean, I think all of this class, all the sessions are our workbook that you're going to have on your desk as a manual that you're going to go back to and refer to things as you see different parts of your business growing and changing, or you hit a ceiling on something. There's probably something you can go back and plus it from what you've learned today and in the other sessions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. We'll come back in 7 minutes.
All right, well, welcome back. I hope that you guys have a plan you're going to start working on, and you've identified a person to be your accountability partner around that. It's going to bring such clarity to how you work with buyers and sellers, and it's going to give you, I think, some peace to where am I at in my business this week, next week, and 60 days and 100 days out, because you're now classifying and clarifying and putting people on the right plans to help strategize and build them up to the point where they're ready to actually transact business with you. So on the ahas to achievement, what has changed your thinking in this section? What ideas and mindsets are new? Like, what has made an impact on you that you're saying, okay, I should be doing that differently, or I didn't think about it that way? That's kind of what we're looking for there. And then what do you feel differently about? Do you have more maybe confidence in a listing appointment because you now have information to ask ahead of time? I think there's safety in those sheets because it's already for you. And if you use it, it guides you through the process. So what was meaningful for you today in that process?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then how will your behaviors be different going forward? So you've made a plan, you've role played two different things. What actions will you take from this session on? Yeah. And then I know we talked about tools a lot. So what tools and models and systems will you use? And how will using those make you more accountable daily, weekly, monthly? So really delving into command and seeing what tools are there that can help you with the buyers and sellers and cultivating them.
That's awesome. I mean, I trust as they take this last moment to really think through those all important questions and what's next, that there's a lot that they've plugged in, because there was a lot you shared, some great expertise, great content. Probably, yeah, this, especially in this market, as we really need to understand motivation, that's becoming an all important skill. It's always been an important skill, and yet in shifts becomes even more important, right? So thank you so much for bringing the energy and expertise and guiding our time today. So
no, I loved it. I always love sharing ways to make business less stressful and run your business more like a business, and that comes with systems. So I love that.
That's awesome. That's who we are. Awesome. So as we're wrapping up this session here, of course, if you're in your market centers, present there with your peers and your facilitator, then we get to jump into the success system. right? Where you get to role play once again to lead generate, right? So this is role playing in order to find new possible pieces of business. So role play that. You'll jump into lead generation, of course, writing handwritten notes, make sure they're out of the database at whole, well, and the social media 1051. So we're going to transition there. You might have a little bit of a break. If you haven't yet, write those ahas of achievement before you break away or leave your table wherever you're at. That's going to be important to do. But yet you'll transition to the Market Center if you're there. If you happen to be by yourself watching this, still do the daily success activities, create a time block, a bunker in order to get these done. Or if you're watching this sometime in the future from where we're going live, what does your calendar presently look like to begin this today? All right. Of course, bring in your coach, bring in your team leader. We're here as one big purposeful KW family to get your business grown. And yeah, honored to be in business with you, Amanda. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome.
We'll see you
My
all in the
pleasure.
next session. Yep.